And what's up, everybody? This is Terminator Juice back with another Juice Opinions video, and I'm gonna just get right into it. So, Doctor81 made a video, and he's talking about the switches setting for RGB range. I'm not gonna get too technical with it. You know, go watch his video. For the most part, he's says everything's pretty much accurately. Leaves out a few things I want to talk about. But I do got to admit, I watched the video, and I had watched a similar video about a year ago, a little bit after the Switch came out, and I went through the the RGB settings on my TV. It's a 2013. It's a 1080p model. It's not 4K or anything, and I had left the Switch on RGB range full, which the three options are auto, limited, and full. And just real quick, limited doesn't mean it's not what it sounds. It sounds like, oh, you're missing out. Limited basically is just a way to say, what most TVs, what most movies and everything display. Red RGB stands for red, green, blue, by the way. It's the founding colors, if you will, of any display. So it's the base colors that everything else, if you zoom in or take got the equipment to take a micro image of your screen, you'll just see green, blue, and red dots or pixels. So anyway, so I went through all that about a year ago, and I broke one of my top rules. I got into a debate or an argument when I wasn't 100% sure on what I was talking about. I knew my TV was that my Switch was set to full. I knew it could it didn't make it look like crushed black like Doc Trey was saying. I went back and forth with the settings. To my eye, I couldn't see a difference, so I started snapping pictures, but each time you go through the settings, my phone was adjusting, so it was hard to get the exact same what's the word when you're taking a photo, for the brightness or whatever, to be the same for each photo. And I was like, going off my memory, which a year ago, I'm getting up there in age. I don't remember everything. I knew my TV had a limited and full setting, so I went through the picture settings, and I was taking a picture, say, hey, because my comment to Dr. Trey was like, some TVs can handle full RGB. Cheap TVs probably don't, but if you have a good TV, you're probably all right. And I was taking photos of that to prove that setting's there. So I put it on limited, or to put on full, took a picture, put on limited, took a picture, and I backed out of the menu. And then I was switching between, and I went back to the Switch. I had Rocket League on, and I was switching between full range and limited RGB, and then I was seeing a difference, and I was like, whoa. So I was snapping a picture, and I was like linked Doc Trey or tagged him, and I was like, which image do you think's better? One had really bright colors, the blue sky looked great, the grass looked greener, and the other looked duller colors. But I posted those in haste. I'm gonna admit it right now, I was so adamant about being right in that situation. Like I said, I broke one of my top rules, got into that kind of a discussion or debate without checking myself, checking my facts. And then he's like, well, you're proving my point. The image on the right, the colors seem brighter, but look at the details in the car are gone. It's just all black now. So I was like, oh shit. So I went in and I looked. Well, my TV is not an RGB setting. It's a dynamic range setting. So to complicate things, it's not HDR, but before HDR existed, there was still a dynamic range setting on some TVs. And by setting the dynamic range, which basically, let's say, this is all black, this is all white, and there's a lot of gradients in between. When you set it to limited, it gets way closer. So what would have normally been like a gray is now black. Would have been a lighter, not as bright shade of white is now pure white. So having completely forgot that I had set my dynamic range to limited, I took those photos and then got on this discussion. And once I realized it, of course, Doc Trey don't know who I am, so he just thinks I'm some idiot who didn't know what he was talking about. Then I was like, once I realized it, I was like, funny thing, dynamic range on TVs is the complete opposite of RGB range, where limited dynamic range actually crushes the image, whereas in RGB range, full crushes, it has black crush. And he didn't get what I was saying. He thought I was still talking about RGB, and he's like, why are you bringing up dynamic range? And I'm like, hey, because I was telling you that I got mixed up thinking my TV and my switch, the dynamic range of my TV and the RGB range of my switch were the same thing. I just wasn't paying attention. I just got too caught up in it. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I learned something. By setting my TV's dynamic range to limited, then when I went into the RGB setting on the switch, it actually made a difference. But my setting was set to auto before, there was no difference when I set the switch to full or limited. There was no black crush. And as soon as I get like a way to, I'm ordering a tripod mount for my phone because I don't have a camera, so I can take a nice steady screenshot. And so I basically set myself up to fail. And yeah, that was an idiot mistake. And I was in a rush to be right, everybody goes through that. So, then whatever, dude already doesn't trust anything I'm going to say. So, but I know, and I even sent him a picture, say, hey, this is the dynamic range setting. You should be able to understand how I got crossed up between the two. And honestly, once I put it to auto or set it to full for dynamic range, the RGB settings makes no difference. That changes nothing. Because my TV can handle a full range RGB signal. Maybe it doesn't display it, or I can't find enough technical details to know. All I know is it makes no difference. So my advice, and I left another comment. I deleted my other one just because I was wrong. Set your RGB range to auto. It's the default setting. PS4's default setting. I'm guessing the Xbox One's default setting. Because two reasons. One, if you moved your switch, let's say you moved it to a computer monitor, you hook it up to a projector on a big screen, most projectors are made for PC to be connected, so they support full range. It's really the PC thing. But you set it to auto. That, like I said, you hook your switch up to the monitor. You ain't got to go in there and mess with it. You ain't got to go into the settings and, oh shit, I forgot to set it to full. Then you hook it back to your TV and oh shit, I got to set it back to limited. Or you don't even know what your TV is capable of. If you have like a brand new LG OLED, there's no reason to set it to full or limited. Set it to auto. The switch and the TV will talk to each other. And if it's capable of handling RGB auto or full, it'll send it. Now, the way to test this is just go in, and it's already set to auto, and have I got SteamWorld Dig 2 as my first game because that has darks in their little box art thing. And if set it to full, and then set it to limited, and you should be able to see if your TV can't handle the full or doesn't. It just does the black crush, you'll be able to see it. If there's no difference, then either way it doesn't matter. But auto is just the setting, and that's the one thing Doc Trey didn't say. He said set it to limited and be done with it. Do not set it to full. He basically didn't say it in these words, but if you put it to full, you're going to see black crush unless you're on a PC monitor, and that's just not true. For most people it's true, but for the average person, just set it to auto. I mean, that's how quick that video could have been. I wish I didn't get ahead of myself and make myself look foolish there. I could have just simply thought about it for a minute and just been like, saw that there was no difference and just put your thing on auto. I mean, unless it's like a first gen HDMI TV that, you know, the first year or two that had HDMI, there might be an issue. I knew a guy years ago, probably 3-4 years ago. He had a CRT HD TV, if you believe it. It was like a 38-inch or 40-inch. You know, the thing was like this, you know, from front to back. If you're looking from the side, the thing was, you know, had to have been 4 foot wide, maybe more. But his HDMI, you know, that was one of the first TVs that had HDMI, but his TV was only 1080i interlaced, 720p or 480p. But his Blu-ray player couldn't talk to the HDMI port of the TV and just set it to auto and try to display in 1080p. And there was nothing you could do. I brought over another monitor so I could see what was going on. When I switched it to 480, it worked on his TV, but as soon as I tried to put it to 1080i, it would just, for whatever reason, the handshaking between the two devices through the HDMI, it would just constantly go to 1080p, and his TV couldn't display it. And I said, you're going to run into this problem with every Blu-ray player. Your TV's out of date. Go buy a new TV, which he did, and he was very happy with what he got. So, and I guess there's a 1%, probably less than 1% chance auto is going to mess something up, but that's just the way to go. And, you know, and then the other thing, go on the forums and you cannot find a definitive answer of what TVs actually support full RGB. Is it a catchphrase? You know, is that something they're going to try to do in the future? Is there any difference between, let's say you got a, and I don't want to get off track here, but I don't uphold to the pro calibrated TVs. I think they look too dim, too warm of color tone, and you know, the purists, they turn off every setting, and it's like I tried that. I looked up for my TV a pro calibrated settings for my model TV, and it looks like ass. Like, it just looks terrible. So anyway, if you have a TV calibrated to what your eyes like to see, and you put the switch, put it on the limited or whatever, auto, that looks good. Now, if you take that same game, take the switch, hook it to a computer monitor, and put it to full, and that monitor set right, it's going to look good. Is the full range on the computer monitor going to look better but automatically? Only if that monitor is just leaps and bounds better than your TV as far as its potential picture quality. A full range RBG on a PC monitor looks good, and the quote-unquote limited RGB of TVs on a really nice TV, like mine was the pinnacle of 1080p TVs for Sony. It was the next, like, there was their flagship fully backlit LED, and then the TV I bought was the next one down. It's just edge lit LED. But you're not missing out. And I think Game Explain or Nintendo Life, I've heard people talking about, well, the Switch ports are going to look better because of the full range RBG setting on the Switch. Well, if you're playing on a computer monitor and you played on the Wii U, which only had limited, it definitely didn't look as good as it could have on a good TV. But with the Switch, all it means is whether you're playing on a computer monitor or on a TV, you're covered. So again, set it to auto, and that's it for that. The next thing, and I forgot my prop. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right. All right, sorry about that. And I actually couldn't find the one I wanted, so I had to choose my second choice. So I'm going to do a quick movie review for you guys. I know it's a gaming channel, but instead of going into full details, I'm just going to give you the highlights of a review, and you can tell me if you think I'm talking about a good movie or not. So I would say number one, reference level sound design, demo material, sound design, uh, I uh, jaw-dropping visual effects, and uh, I guess I would say great summer popcorn flick. So those are the highlights of my review. Give you a second, good movie. Is it a good movie? Am I talking about a good movie? Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, one of my least favorite movies of all time. Upon further watching, I got caught up in the hype when it came out. It's like, oh, newest and greatest visuals and audio, got to get it from my theater room for demo disc. So why did I bring that up? So I could make this sound pretty good, but as a movie, I didn't describe the movie at all. What I described was the technical aspects of this Blu-ray, because that's what Blu-ray reviews usually do, and that's fine. That's why I buy some Blu-rays for their sound design stuff. Terrible, makes no sense story, terrible acting, bad editing, incomplete special effects. Seen The Last Jedi already, Trilink. Not a great movie. It was rushed. The script was during the writer's strike. The script was thrown together. Nothing made sense. But as a Blu-ray at the time, you had a theater room and you wanted to be wowed by sound effects and see what kind of colors your TV was capable of. Excellent sound design, great visuals, colors pop off the screen. To most movie watchers, those things mean nothing. Like, you're not going to go watch a movie. Most people aren't going to go watch a movie at a theater and pay money because the sound design is great or the special effects. Most people go to the movies because it looks like a fun movie, looks like a good movie, looks like something they could get lost in, a world they could get lost in, or characters they could really relate to, or looks super sad but like a really good story based on true events, or not just on true events, but like on a real person, their story, like Patriots Day. That movie brought me to tears like no other movie in a long time, based on the Boston marathon bombings. Probably not the best movie I've ever seen, but really well done, great acting, great score, well written. And it's like, that's important for most people to go see a movie, right? I mean, if you want to argue that, then if you go see movies just for sound effects and turn your brain off and want to go see Rampage, even though it doesn't make any sense at all, that's fine. Whatever. It's just not my thing. So transitioning into gaming, when I see incredible story, amazing visuals, cinematic experience, amazing cinematic experience, and those are the headlines, doesn't sound like any type of game I want to play. So I'm going to read a tweet because the reply to it has me baffled and stunned. So this is my tweet, and I'm going to read it slow, not just so you can. I'm going to read it word for word. So this quote: when the highlighted quotes for review are incredible story, cinematic experience, and amazing visuals, and it's not for a movie, then I know it's not a game for me. Gameplay should be the focal point of a video game, in my opinion. All right, let me read this part again. Then I know it's not a game for me. Gameplay should be the focal point of a game, in my opinion. I knew people were going to know that was talking about God of War, the God of War reviews, but it transcends just that game. Uncharted 4, The Last of Us, Uncharted 3, Uncharted 2, The Order 1866 had reviews saying shit like that. Not saying that there isn't other good stuff, but when that is the cream of the crop headlines, quotes from reviews typically turns out to be a game, if I end up playing it, that doesn't hold my interests, that I may or probably not even finish. Let me read. I gotta read this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna. You can go check it out on Twitter. You do know that that to many people there are more important factors to them than just gameplay. So there's more things are more important than gameplay. I know a person who can't play if the music isn't on point. I know others that turn a game off if the story is weak. So are they play the game wrong? Are they playing the game wrong? I mean, let's see. I don't want games to focus more on gameplay. I want them to focus on whatever makes their game great, which not a terrible statement in its own, because if it's a rhythm game, the music is probably king, and then, you know, have something interesting on the screen. I don't really like rhythm games, but you could say, what's the gameplay? It's usually pressing a button in time with the music. So, or, you know, waving your arms if it's dance, just dance. Not a terrible thing to say, but actually earlier there was a quote about just gameplay's third on his list of important things. Gameplay's third on his list of what's important in a game. So that just absolutely baffles me. That, yeah, I know there are genres, the Telltale games, where it's more of an interactive story experience. That's fine. Again, not for me. Never played one. Never will play one. Don't give two shits. I tried to watch the Telltale Batman, and it's just, I'm gonna watch a movie. I kind of feel the same way about books. I'd rather just watch the movie, experience the movie. Yeah, books often have more character development, and, you know, they're more fleshed out characters, and the endings are usually better. Movies just somehow never capture that. But gaming, to me, is about the gameplay. It's about what I'm doing with the controller. Are the controls solid? Is what I'm doing on screen fun? I could play a game, and I played many games with minimal to no story, and it doesn't make the game any less fun. Reverse that and take a game with minimal to no gameplay. I don't give a shit who the actors are, it's just a movie then. Why do I have a controller in my hand? It could be a really good story, but I'm not going to pay $60 for a fucking movie, you know? And I know there's people out there like that. I know they're casual gamers. Gameplay isn't the focal point. It's either it's what's popular, what game's popular. So probably playing Fortnite, probably playing PUBG, shit like that. I'm not saying those are bad games, but those are the popular thing to do right now. And there's people that they don't care about the gameplay experience. And I don't know why you go out and spend $400 on a PS4 day one or an Xbox One for $500 if you just like stories, if you like cinematic experiences. Now, if you do, be you. I'm not sitting here, you know, a little bit. I'm confused why you're spending that much money to get cinematic experiences. But it's your money. It's your taste. If that's what you like to do, then do that. And maybe you like sports games. Maybe you like playing sports games. But what if the sports game didn't have you doing anything but watching your team play, and then you could maybe do some roster adjustments? I wonder if you'd still think that that's fine. You know, take away the ability to call plays, execute plays, pick which receiver you're going to throw it to, decide if you're going to lead them forward, you know, or throw a back shoulder. Take all that away, and you just pick the play and you pick the players. You think that's going to be fun? No, it isn't. I don't even have to ask. It's rhetorical. So I'm just confused. That really sidetracked me. I really just want to talk about God of War, the reviews, and hey, the game's getting good reviews. The funny thing about it, though, is that the gameplay is usually second tier mentioned. what was it? Jose, not Jose Otero. I wish it was Jose was still at IGN after that Nintendo voice chat from yesterday. But Brian Altano, he took all 200 characters to talk about the cinematic experience, a relationship between Kratos and his son, the visuals. And then his second tweet was, oh, yeah, it's also a pretty fun game to play. It's also fun. Like you had to wait till a second tweet to mention the gameplay. Like that, those are red flags to me. Now, again, if you love that type of game, if you love The Last of Us, all the Uncharted's, what other games are similar? I don't put Rise of the Tomb Raider and Tomb Raider in those because to me the gameplay is so good in those games. There are Uncharted-like moments, and there are story elements. I like Lara Croft's new voice actress, and there's some interesting supernatural elements in the first game. I didn't put 60 hours in Rise of the Tomb Raider because of the cutscenes, because of the cinematic experience. I did it because I could run around with the bow, I could shoot a bunch of stuff, collect resources to upgrade my equipment. I can jump just about anywhere. There's not as many invisible walls. I don't need a yellow thing in a wall or a white marks. I mean, there are some, but I don't need those. Lara Croft don't need those to be able to climb stuff. If it's within her reach and not like the edge of the stage where they just don't want you to go, she'll climb it. It's not Breath of the Wild, but so I don't put the new Tomb Raider games in that Uncharted climbing, cover, shoot, cutscene, shooting, running, climbing, cutscene. Like, to me, those are the cinematic experiences. The Last of Us, out of all the PlayStation games that have that formula with a character following you, lift them up so they can throw a ladder down type of games, The Last of Us actually had some pretty cool stealth, and the shooting mechanics were the best. Maybe Uncharted 4 might be a little better as far as the actual controls, but the sounds of the guns, the impact, the difference in shooting a shotgun versus a pistol, you really felt the impact, and sneaking around the clickers, and there were some AI issues. There could be two guys standing literally right next to each other. You could take one out, stealth kill, and the other guy didn't even react. So there's some limitations, but the game had pretty good stealth, and the shooting mechanics were pretty good. But that's why I give that game a pass. It was my number 2 game of 2013. But for the most part, the Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 4 gameplay was so far down the list of important things, even though it was better in Uncharted 4. It's everything's there to propel the narrative. And somebody replied to my comment saying I described Xenoblade Chronicles 2 to them. Hey, if cinematic experience, amazing, incredible story, and amazing visuals describe Xenoblade Chronicles to you, great. I put 155 hours in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and what is the cutscene? I wonder what the runtime of all the cutscenes put together. It's probably, I'm guessing, under 5 hours. And I skipped almost every cutscene for the side quests for the blades, because after watching the first couple, if the blade that just had an annoying kind of character was just an annoying personality, I skipped all those cutscenes. My first playthrough. The combat is why I played that game. The affinity charts, the dangling the carrot, the gameplay, and the progression is why I put 155 hours into that game. So I would not call that a cinematic experience. I would not say the story is incredible. I thought it was really good. Funny at times, silly at times, really well done. But the game as a whole, it's not a cinematic experience, because there was times where I went 30 hours in between cutscenes. So how is that a cinematic experience? And then the visuals, they range from really good at times to PS2 level visuals, in my opinion. It's fine. Overall, the game looks good. The art direction's good. The worlds are interesting. The whole idea is cool. It's not a visually, technically impressive game. There's a lot of rough edges in that game. So for me personally, I would not describe Xenoblade Chronicles 2. First thing would be incredibly deep combat system, really enjoyable progression system, leveling up system, The blades, I would give a nod to the characters. The ones that were good were really good. And so, yeah, I did enjoy the story, but the combat, if the combat wasn't there, then I'm not playing that game. So, getting back to God of War, I just want to say, I'm not saying this game is bad. Like, it's getting 9s and 10s, and the average is like 93 or 94 for a reason, because there's some quality there. I'm sure it's a well made. It seems to be visuals are impressive. Plus, it runs really smooth, just like Horizon Zero Dawn. Technically sound games. I'm sure the sound design's incredible. The acting's probably good. But I look at the gameplay, and I haven't played it, but I look at it and I just see a lot of Dark Souls, which I'm not a big fan of. And, it just doesn't look like, oh my God, I can't wait to play that game. Now, I will get it eventually, I think, depending on what comes out second half of the year for the Switch. And this might sound a little hypocritical. I will wait till it's $40, not because I think games should get price drops right away, but Sony does it. Sony's created this mindset that within 2 months, a game's going to see a price drop. So why would I buy a game day one knowing that probably before E3, that game's going to be $40, maybe just for a weekend, maybe for a couple weeks? Like, I'm not going to pay 60 and have it be devalued $20 within, before I'm done playing it. So I'm just going to wait. I see it for 40 with my Best Buy discount, $34 or something after tax. I'll pick it up because there's really nothing calling my name other than Mario Tennis until, for this first half of the year, just playing Rocket League and some going back through Doom and stuff. So again, there have been reviews where they did say, some people say the combat in God of War is deep and it's fun and it's the best in the series. And I'm glad TriLink brought up Bayonetta. I got 65 hours in Bayonetta 2. I've only watched the cinematics on my first playthrough. I watched a few of them just for the hell of it the last time I played it, just because I hadn't been so long since I seen them. I didn't keep playing that game because of the cinematics. Now, those games are designed for the levels to be replayed, to get gold, to get platinum, to get pure platinum. That game was designed that way. I'm guessing God of War was not designed that way. Will it be fun to play through again? I don't think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 would be super exciting to play through again, even though I love the combat system. To go through the story stuff isn't really calling my name. Same with Xenoblade Chronicles X, but I have a lot of hours in that game. Zelda, I played through twice, and I'd start it again tomorrow probably and enjoy it. So just again, to summarize, not saying that those reviews are BS. I'm just, when I see almost every reviewer highlighting the same things about cinematics, story, visuals, I guess to me that just says, I was heading towards it. I was thinking about getting it, not really for God of War, but for any other game. And I'll take a right turn and I'll wait. Let's see. What's your thoughts on people degrading Switch ports being full price compared to a greatest hits price on other consoles? Well, what is let's see. What's an example? Rise of the Tomb Raider came out a year later on PS4. It was $60. I mean, where's I don't know why it's only the Switch that this is a bad thing for. When BioShock finally came out on the PS3, I'm guessing it was full price, and it was year and a half later. When Bayonetta finally came out on PS3, I believe it was full price. You haven't seen a review that hasn't praised God of War's combat? Well, I'm talking about the headlines. When I see the headlines, I'm like, if that's that's the highlights. If I got to dig to find out where the gameplay is good, and I did say that people said the gameplay was the best in the series and was fun. So I'm not saying it doesn't have great gameplay. Just saying when the headlines, the focal of the review is everything but gameplay, that's when I know, usually, it's not always true, when I eventually play that game, I find that I'm not as interested in it as everyone else because I don't really care about story. I don't really care about cinematic experiences. Just it's just the way I am, and that's the gamer I am. Um, Horizon Zero Dawn, oddly enough, the story was the weakest part of the reviews. And that, I did bring that up because I know it was supposed to be this epic RPG, this Western RPG. And if the story's not good, but the gameplay was fun enough, not quite as good as I thought it was going to be. I expected the gameplay to be great, and it was just, good to really good. The story was okay, but it didn't drive me forward. It was, fighting giant robots, dinosaur creatures, and just exploring the world and stuff is what drew me back to Horizon Zero Dawn. The reviewers actually shitted on the story more than I would have. So, and just another thing, you can't really trust reviews. But like I said, when I see all these highlights and they're all saying the same thing, and gameplay is not the one, not even on the list, that's when, like I said, even if it's hidden in there, hey, we love the combat, but it's buried under all this talk about visuals, all this talk about 4K, all this talk about cinematics and gripping stories and relationship between father and son. That's great. For me, for a movie, that's great. I don't necessarily need that in the game, but maybe once I play God of War, maybe the combat is really good and I really enjoy it. I'm not saying it won't be, but it's not a day one. And, just like even with movies, when a bunch of people are praising like the Avengers, I didn't hear one negative thing about the Avengers. All I heard about how awesome it was. I go see it, and I gave it like a C or C minus. Like it just wasn't a great movie to me. There wasn't a whole lot I liked about it. Just didn't do anything for me. So, and yeah, TriLink makes a great point. And I'm gonna add to it, the shelf life of graphics and visuals is limited. Gets dated quickly. Gameplay is timeless. If it's great gameplay, it's timeless. That's what people don't understand. They think about the now. They live in the now. They're wowed by. Remember how people just raved about Uncharted 2? How amazing! Oh my God! How is the PS3 capable of this? Go play that right now on the PS3 and tell me you're wowed by it. Oh, it was a PS3 game. Come on. That's the point. You're not wowed by the graphics anymore. I played it, after the PS4 came out. I played the PS2 version, and all I'm left with is dated visuals, even though they're not terrible, and the gameplay. And guess what? The gameplay shucks. I fucking hate that. Uncharted 2 is in my opinion, one of the most overrated games of all time because I didn't play it when the graphics had that wow factor. I played it after PS4 and Xbox One, and I had a gaming PC. So I went back, and all I had was the gameplay. And yeah, the story was okay. The character, the acting was superb, and the characters were likable, most of them, and it was enjoyable for that. But gameplay wasn't there. That game's not going to age another 10 years. You're going to be like, what the fuck? This game sucks. The aiming, the shooting mechanics were terrible with that PS3 controller. And then, T and Clockton aren't going to like this, but there's a lot of N64 games that it's even worse. Like, yeah, that, Shadow Man 64 impressed the hell out of me when it came out. I believe it needed the RAM expansion. That game looks like absolute garbage now. Yeah, Uncharted 2, I'm not saying it looks terrible, but that wow factor is not there. It's not like Uncharted 4 or Uncharted Lost Legacy or God of War wow factor. And is like, oh, this looks all right. I've been playing way better looking games for the last couple of years. I think it was right after I played Rise of the Tomb Raider, so on PC at ultra settings, at 60 frames per second. So I wasn't wowed by it. Not saying it was ugly or anything. It just didn't impress me like when people played it when it came out. Same with N64 games. Obviously, that was the first real 3D generation, and there wasn't a whole lot of textures. There wasn't a whole lot of high resolution. It was, you know, it looks pretty dated, and you could say what you will. I just, when it's that dated and the controls are dated as well, then it's not a playable experience. Wave Race 64, timeless. That game plays as good today as it did the day it came out, because the gameplay is timeless. It doesn't matter what the visuals look like, the wave physics, the controls are all perfect. It's one of the most timeless, you know, gameplay experiences of the 3D era, in my opinion, for these old games. I hate to say it, you know, GoldenEye to me is unplayable in this in this day and age because of the lack of dual analogs and the no option to invert controls. They're already they're permanently inverted, where down makes you look up, and I can't play that. So I'm not just trashing on Sony's older games. There were definitely N64 games that were wild people with their visuals, and the gameplay doesn't hold up. Now there's quite a few games where the gameplay does hold up. Super Mario 64. If you ask the Banjo-Kazooie guys, the Rare guys that love Rare, they say those games still play great. I don't think so, but you know, I never really liked them anyway. So Super NES is a whole different story for me, because I think that art, that pixel art still looks good, especially when it's emulated, like on the Wii U eShop or the Super NES, you know, mini or classic edition. Those games up converted look really good. You know, that artwork just holds up to me. And if the gameplay was great then, it's still great now. You know, Super Mario Kart definitely doesn't play like I remember, because you're using D-pad, and you know, it's just the way the Mode 7 thing was. It's really hard to play now, you know, so that, you know, I probably get used to it if I stuck to it, but I don't need to go back and play Super Mario Kart on the Super NES. I just don't. Mario Kart 8 took everything to the level where it is now. And, you know, so I'm sure that's a whole other debate I could have with people. I know they're, like I said, Mizzy and Clocked It, they play their N64s like every week. I spend more time hooking it up than I do playing it. When I do every few years, if I hook it up, it takes me more time to hook it up than I actually get enjoyment out of playing those games, because after 5 minutes I'm bored, because I'm like, yeah, I played all these games before. There's nothing new here other than some nostalgia. There's, you know, games have evolved and improved for most part. Like I said, Wave Race, Mario 64 still play great, but you know, I'm not one of those retro gamer guys. So take my opinion on Uncharted 2 and all that with a grain of salt, because I really don't go back and play a lot of older games anyway. Just, I don't know what it is. I'd like to look to the future, I guess, but Breath of the Wild, that game's still going to look good. Will it look better when it's, you know, in a couple of generations they port it and it's, you know, higher resolution, better draw distance? So yeah, that art style it'll be like Wind Waker. We thought Wind Waker looked visually, you know, really good in standard def on the GameCube, and then we saw what it's capable of in HD. You can say, well, Zelda's already in HD, you know. Yeah, it's 900p. I think it's adaptive, but to see that art style truly done justice in a system, you know, maybe at 1080 or 4K, whatever, I think it's going to have the Wind Waker effect. So there are art styles that don't need a whole lot of work to become modernized, I guess, and really wow people. And I think Breath of the Wild will just blow people's minds if they do like the Wind Waker treatment with it in a couple generations. And you know, by then we got 8K TVs probably out and shit. But anyway, I think the only other thing, I wasn't going to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about Wolfenstein 2 again. Nintendo voice chat. I'm sorry. I am not sorry. The people they have on when it's not Pear, even I like Brian Altano way more than everyone else. When you get these people on, and they made multiple videos about Wolfenstein 2, about how choppy it is and how early it is and glitches here, audio issues here. Alana Pierce just, oh my God, it looks so rough, blah, blah, blah. And it's even worse in portable mode. And I watched their 25-minute or 22-minute gameplay, and I see maybe 2 stutters that are just obvious to me. Otherwise, the game turning speed, everything's looking smooth. The game's very impressive. They quickly mention, well, the Switch is a mobile device. I think I'm going to say this every podcast, every Juice Opinions from here on out. Can't we just be in awe of what the Switch is capable of, considering everything that it's doing for what it is? Like, can we just stop? It's a year plus later. Can we just stop thinking it's going to have PS4 level visuals, Xbox One level visuals? The fact that Wolfenstein 2 runs as well as it does and looks as good as it does, there's no denying that that's Wolfenstein 2. And Red Knight talked about this in his last one that was on YouTube. And you see that and you're just like immediately like, oh my God, look at it. It doesn't look like PS4. Why would you expect it to look like PS4? Have you not seen the Switch? The Switch is smaller than this thing right here. This is a Blu-ray cart, disc case. The Switch is about that wide, maybe the same width. The power supply, the disc drives in the PS4, not the new one, not the new Xbox, but the original Xbox One power supply is bigger than the Switch. The disk drives in these systems as big as the Switch. And you're saying you saw a lot of dips. I watched 25 minutes from Game Explain. I watched 22 minutes, and I'm like, where are these huge dips that everyone's talking about? I see a few little stutters. This game isn't coming out. I played through Doom. I have 45 hours in Doom on the Switch. It has 2 areas where I've noticed any kind of, significant drop in frame rate, and it was just for a small one section clearing a hive, if you will. I'm watching this Wolfenstein footage, and I'm just in awe of that it's running on the Switch, because you got 2 guns on the screen. You got arms flailing. I don't know. I don't understand why we haven't accepted the Switch for what it is, and why people aren't more impressed with what it's doing. Playing a first-person shooter under 25. How do you know it's under 25? Like, there's nothing from that video that told me that game's running under 25, except for a couple little spots. I'm like, oh yeah, they're definitely stuttered right there. But Doom doesn't run 30 constantly on the Switch, and guess what? I'm having more fun on the Switch version than I did on my PC version on Ultra at 60. Why? Because I'm playing on my favorite console. I'm playing it from the comfort of my couch. I'm playing it with gyro aiming. And I'm not a keyboard and mouse guy. I don't like that. And I'm having a blast taking screenshots, and it's a fun experience. So I don't get this. And I guess I got to point out one more time. Then I'm going to finish this up. Before Doom came out, I was on that. If it's not 60, I don't know. And why would I want to play the inferior version? I was that guy. Then I got $10 gift card from Best Buy for buying Super Mario Odyssey, plus a $5 card I had from previous purchases. Got $15 off plus 20% off Doom. Forget what I paid for it. It's like $30 or something or less day one. So I'd give it a try. I was like, I'm gonna play this, and I'm gonna give my impressions, and if it sucks, I'm gonna let people know. It totally won me over. I don't know how it's 30 when you move forward so fast, and it's like, oh, well, movement speed does not do the frame rate. It doesn't. Put Rocket League on 30 and tell me it feels as fast when you're moving forward. Somehow, they made your character move through the environment and turn like it's a 60 frames per second game. I don't know how else to explain it. I can upload some gameplay proving I have Doom and it runs at Ultra at 59 to 60 frames per second on my PC. And then I can show you the Switch version, how many hours I have in. I don't know how to convince you that even though I thought like you, and you might not, you might buy Doom and on Switch if it gets a price cut, and you might think I'm completely crazy. But I thought just like you, and I forget who said it. Marasonero? Why do you have such a long name, man? Just can't you have a simple name? But just kidding. I was just like, yeah, I was like, no way I'm going to play that game at 30. There's no way. Because I heard, Rise of the Tomb Raider on the Xbox One at 30 didn't play great. Well, it had nothing to do with the frame rate. It was the input lag. Whatever reason the Xbox One version had. The Xbox 360 version didn't even have the input lag. So it's all about controls. It's all about the responsiveness. Snappy controls can make a game feel really good. It doesn't matter what the frame rate is, as long as it's not dipping down into 20s, consistently. If it's 25 to 30 most of the game, that's what Doom is, fine. Wolfenstein's a day one purchase. Gyro controls, day one purchase. I mean, it's just what it is to all it is to it. So anyway, that's going to be it. And I know speed of the game and frame rate is separate, but for most people, they talk about 60 frames per second in Call of Duty because of the Twitch responsiveness, the Twitch controls, and this and that. Doom has those Twitch controls. I go like this. I'm jumping. I do a quick like that, get a headshot. That's Twitch controls. I don't know how else to explain it. I think if you have any interest, if you haven't played Wolfenstein 2 or Doom, you have a Switch, I'm telling you, it's a good experience on the Switch. Yeah, it's blurrier. The resolution's not amazing. It looks better in handheld than it does on TV. But anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Probably play some Rocket League, or I might go see Isle of Dogs. Finally hit my theater this weekend. Really looking forward to that movie. Random thought, but yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.